We finally have our answer to the question that every Vikings fan has been wondering all week, leading into a huge home matchup versus the Eagles, as well as the final Week 7 injury report before Sunday, as brought to us by Kevin O'Connell, that has Vikings fans equally excited and nervous for the big matchup against the Eagles. We're going to break down all that in this episode of Vikings Digest, but first, if you're not a part of the 13% of viewers who are already subscribed to the channel and you want to stay up to date on all things Vikings, make sure to hit that subscribe button and the bell icon so you don't miss any of the episodes when they drop. With that, let's hop into the first topic of the day, which is the final Week 7 injury report. So Kevin O'Connell brought us the final Week 7 injury report with a huge announcement right off the bat in his press conference, saying that Carson Wentz will start again Sunday for the Vikings. As head coach Kevin O'Connell made the announcement Friday after operating with discretion, as veteran Wentz and second-year pro JJ McCarthy put their bodies to the test in practices this week. McCarthy participated for the first time Monday since suffering the high ankle sprain September 14th against Atlanta, and Wentz felt soreness after briefly leaving the Week 5 game overseas to get his non-throwing shoulder examined. He returned to his second team to earn his second win in 3 starts while subbing in for McCarthy, with Kevin O'Connell speaking exactly on it, saying that I was really proud of the work JJ put in as he kind of continues to push through the later stages of this rehab. Feel good about him being available, but he will be the emergency third quarterback. And when talking on the issue of having multiple quarterbacks, he was saying that we went into last game with 2 quarterbacks and didn't quite feel like that was the smartest thing to do, and feel good about where he'd be at if he had to play in that third quarterback capacity. So Max Brosmer will back up Carson Wentz. So this is a huge one for the Vikings because Carson Wentz, it's a revenge game for him. You know it's going to be, because we've been talking about it all week on this channel, how even if JJ was ready to go, still throw Carson in there just to give him the satisfaction of beating the hell out of his former team with a mostly healthy team in front of him. And I also was saying that if you don't have your offensive line fully healthy with JJ McCarthy coming off of an injury where those 2 games before that, he didn't have any really of his offensive line starting in those games, or at least in more than 3 of them at least. So you have a situation there where you don't want to throw JJ McCarthy in if he's fully healthy, where he doesn't have his full offensive line there, because we saw what happened in those first 2 games when he didn't have it. Yes, he's not always going to have his perfect offensive line, and I'm not saying that you only start him when you have that. But for him to kind of get his footing in the early going, he needs everything to kind of be perfectly tailored around him just so that he can get that confidence going. And then once we get into later parts of the season, that's when you kind of start throwing the curveballs at him. Not intentionally, of course, because injuries aren't planned or intentional. But if you have something there where you have a lot more injuries popping up throughout the year and the offensive line looks a bit more Swiss cheese, by then McCarthy will still have enough confidence in him to execute during those stressful times. Whereas Carson Wentz, right now, he's the veteran quarterback. You lean on what is working from a veteran standpoint. But O'Connell did return to talking about McCarthy as well, saying that JJ got a ton of reps this week, both with the first group and also with getting some real good reps with that look team, feeling the rush of Grenard, Turner, Hargrave, and Allen, and really working on some things that are really starting to come to fruition. So I was proud of the way that he attacked this week, and I know although he's not quite all the way there yet, he's progressing in a really good way. So that's obviously what you want to hear coming out of your head coach about your starting quarterback. And we heard O'Connell talk on Paul Allen's show and on the Vikings YouTube channel with their weekly podcast, saying how he was working on some things with McCarthy, that getting back to the foundation, some mechanics, some fundamentals, making sure that McCarthy can be fully ready to excel to that next level like they expect him to, with Kevin O'Connell leading the way. This is obviously one of those times where he had a lot of time off to kind of really take the learning part of it and the studying part of it and the film aspect of it, not so much the on-field aspect. So that is a little bit more preparation that JJ has for this game. It's just you want to have that full week of practice with your rookie quarterback, essentially. I know we're going to say that all year is that he's a rookie quarterback. We know he's a second-year quarterback. We all know. But essentially, he is a rookie in this sense because it's his first year starting. So when you have a quarterback like that where it's going to take a little bit of time, you trust in your veteran while he's still playing well. And once he's ready to go, boom, you kind of plug him in there. If you don't have him ready to go throughout the entire week, it's harder to game plan for that, or having to make 2 game plans for 2 different quarterbacks with 2 different strengths, like we've talked about before. And a lot of former quarterbacks in the NFL on their shows have been talking about that as well, where if you have a situation where you have a quarterback where you have a sort of situation where you don't know which quarterback you want to start or which quarterback is healthier to start, you go with the one that is always the more healthier, of course, but one that you can game plan more of for a distinct plan that is more likely to come to fruition, rather than wasting time on a game plan that isn't going to ultimately happen. That's what Minnesota is doing here. And we've heard Kevin O'Connell talk multiple times how he's not going to rush JJ back unless he's 110% ready. And this is another indictment of that. And it's also goes to show precedent with the other players that they've had this caution with. TJ Hawkinson, Christian Darrisaw, Justin Jefferson at times, Donovan Jackson as well, who will probably be playing this week, which we're going to hop into in a second with the full list of the injuries. But overall, I like the move of going with Carson Wentz for this week. It's not just because it's the Eagles game, but because JJ isn't fully healthy. Even if he is ready to be that emergency quarterback, clearly he's not fully ready to be the starting quarterback. So obviously Carson Wentz, put him in there, get a revenge game against your former team, and hopefully everything goes well from there. But as far as the full injury report from Friday, you had Andrew Van Ginkel as a limited participant, but is still going to be ruled out. We kind of anticipated this happening just because of the back-to-back limited practices, and Kevin O'Connell saying that he's still kind of working through things with that neck injury. He's a big impact player. So you want to have him out there as soon as you can, but still it does suck not having him out there for a big game against a high-powered offense that you need basically your best player on defense on the field for. The Vikings, unfortunately, will not have that. But on the bright side, we do have most of our defense healthy as a result of it, with almost everybody playing on the defensive side of the ball that are starters, except for Andrew Van Ginkel, Tyler Batty, and Blake Cashman. They will likely be activated ahead of the game, as Kevin O'Connell was saying. So as much as it is a concern of Blake Cashman being questionable, he did log back-to-back full practices and is probably going to be on track to be playing on Sunday. So that is a huge boost for the Minnesota Vikings. Then, of course, you got Michael Juergens. He's questionable as well. JJ McCarthy. Brian O'Neill is fully questionable because he had back-to-back limited practices. So hopefully he is going to be ready to go, but that probably will be a 90-minute decision before the game. Then you have Jonathan Grenard with limited practice on the hamstring, just popping up recently there. But then you have Donovan Jackson, who is going to be ready to go, as we had anticipated for this game. So that's going to be huge for the Vikings, is getting these players back, getting Donovan Jackson back, possibly getting Brian O'Neill back. Christian Darrisaw getting that rest day so he's going to be back. So you have for sure two of those 5 guys on there. Will Fries and Ryan Kelly still questionable, but then you also have Brian O'Neill as a questionable tag on there as well. So if Carson Wentz doesn't have 3 of the 5 main starters, it's even more reason as to why Kevin O'Connell is vindicated in starting Carson Wentz, even if JJ McCarthy is ready to go, or if he was ready to go, I should say, that you wouldn't have had those big studs that you have there on that offensive line that you invested this season into specifically protect JJ McCarthy. So with JJ McCarthy, even if he was at 95%, but you didn't have that full offensive line for his first game back, still go with Carson. Trust your veteran. That is the big thing for a lot of these teams. We've seen it with the Bengals recently, where Joe Flacco last night absolutely torched the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the Bengals looked like a completely different football team than they had up until this point in the season. It just goes to show how much of a difference it makes when you have a veteran quarterback under center on a team that is decimated with injuries or a lot of holes at certain positions. So if Minnesota's in that spot, give it to Carson Wentz. I'm all on the Carson Wentz train right now. You guys have seen me talk on here about multiple games that Carson Wentz has played where he's played really well. He's been that perfect game manager we needed him to be. That's all we need him to be for this game. And with playing his former team, it's just extra incentive for him to go out there and ball out, maybe throw 3 touchdowns, 225. Who knows? Maybe we'll see some more. It's an indoor game, so they're not going to have to deal with the elements. And it's finally a game against the Eagles on home turf. We've been playing at Lincoln Financial Field for the past God knows how many years. Ever since that NFC Championship game, it feels like any game that we've played against the Eagles has been at Lincoln Financial Field. We've had some success there, but not so much recently. We got that revenge game after 2017 and 2018. But then after that, it's been a lot of primetime blowouts. Hopefully, with this game being played in Minnesota at US Bank Stadium, indoors on home turf, it's a much different outcome. But let us know your guys' thoughts on all of this. Let us know what you guys thought of what Kevin O'Connell had to say about JJ McCarthy, and as well as about the different quarterbacks that they're going to roll into with this game. Let us know everything about it down in the comments below. But that's going to do it for this episode of Vikings Digest. I've been your host, Griffin. Take care.